Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate anime through their lovely ladies. This is being released for Halloween, which I think is the perfect time to investigate the vampire waifu from Call of the Night, or Yofukashi no Uta. The show just wrapped up its second season, and while I could wait for the anime to adapt its entire manga, there's more than enough content to get a head start. There are some important developments and new waifu that emerge exclusively in the manga, but I have no issue making a follow-up video if the rest gets adapted. You know how it is being an anime fan. It could be years before we get a third season, if at all. Sure hope so. Anyway, these videos include character lore, so don't be surprised by any spoilers contained within the first two seasons. Without further ado, let's dive into some waifu. Call of the Night tells the story of Koyamori, an insomniac middle schooler who began ditching class to stay up late and roam around his city. Bogged down by the mundane nature of daily life, he prefers the freedom that can be found after hours. If only he could live like this perpetually. Enter Nazuna Nanakusa, a young vampire girl who loves the delicious taste of Ko's blood. Rather than the monsters you see in horror films, Nazuna is a carefree vampire who normally gets her meals from drunk salarymen and homeless people sleeping off the streets. Beyond that, she runs a business out of her apartment, giving clients massages to abate their stress, before taking a sample of their blood when they finally fall asleep. Meeting Nazuna convinces Ko that he too would like to become a vampire. There's a catch though. The only way to become a vampire is to fall in love with one who drinks your blood. The romantic connection is the key ingredient, but Ko doesn't even know what love feels like. Nazuna herself is embarrassed about romance, despite being totally fine with sex and lewd humor. Nonetheless, the two enter into an agreement. Nazuna will drink Ko's blood on a regular basis, and by spending time together, he might just fall for her and become one of her underlings. Having freedom doesn't necessarily mean pursuing excitement. In Nazuna's case, she's very laid back, often spending time in her apartment playing retro video games. She lacks a smartphone and is easily impressed by technology she's not familiar with, which is pretty much anything modern. While she has no trouble interacting with humans, she doesn't care much for associating with her own kind. She's got a childish attitude and a rude tongue. In order to entice Ko to keep coming back, she tries to impress him by pretending her life is eventful when it's really not. At the same time, this actually makes her life more fulfilling, benefiting both of them. Aside from gaming, Nazuna enjoys chugging beer and can hold her liquor surprisingly well for her petite build. Her physical strength is also very misleading. Being a vampire comes with superhuman abilities, such as levitation, which is great for appreciating city lights from up high. Her claws can carve through stone and demolish doors in a jiffy, though she doesn't even need to use doors, being able to phase through walls and other objects. When injured, her body heals up to the point where she can't die in a head-on battle. This comes in handy when she gets territorial over her prey. Naturally, this includes Ko, whom she wants to protect. Ko may be the one wanting to fall in love, but it's Nazuna who develops feelings first. This involves confronting her feelings, even though they embarrass her. She reaches a point where she'd willingly die to keep him safe. Their relationship is bound to get rocky, but I have faith things will work out, even if it's not how I expect. Also, I've got no idea where she buys her clothes, but I want to go to there. There's no shortage of crop tops in her wardrobe, though she looks adorable in pretty much anything. All things considered, Nazuna is one of my certified favorite waifu. She also happens to be the audience favorite, which is a new feature I'll try to implement in future videos. Turns out, Nazuna used to be quite a bit different. She's not an especially old vampire, but she did lose track of her early memories. Rather than being turned, Nazuna was actually born a vampire from her mother Haru. Another of our waifu, Kabura Honda, raised her through infancy, up until she started attending night school. There, she met Kyouko Meijiro, whom she cared for deeply. More on that soon. Part of Nazuna's adventures with Ko involved digging up this forgotten past and coming to terms with it. Nazuna happens to be the spitting image of her mother. Like, no joke, they're practically identical. Haru Nanakusa was a compassionate nurse who came to regret being a vampire. She questioned whether it truly counted as being alive. Despite this, she turned her patient Kabura into an underling before attempting something quite novel. Somehow, she thought that falling in love with a human and bearing his child would turn her human again. She made sure never to drink her spouse's blood as a sign of her sincere affection. It seems there's truth to her theory, as she passed away not long after birthing Nazuna. This indicates a potential weakness for vampires who fall in love with someone they don't or can't convert into an underling. Fun fact, Haruka, Nazuna, and plenty of the other vampires in this story are named after herbs. Not all vampire encounters are pleasant. Our next waifu, Kyouko Meijiro, had the displeasure of seeing both sides of the same coin. Back during high school, she could be found in the literature club room, reading to distract herself from a messy home life. For as much as she loved her parents, she suspected her father was having an affair. Her mom became so fixated on this that she completely neglected her. Fortunately, when Nazuna barged into the literature club, she became a pillar of support for Kyouko. They would share their favorite novels and grow quite intimate. The two girls were clearly attracted to each other, but had more urgent matters to be concerned with. Kyouko confessed about her broken family life to Nazuna. They decided to team up and investigate Kyoko's father and his late-night escapades. First, they snooped around his computer, only to find treasured family photos. Kyouko had given him a lighter as a gift, but he never used it, instead keeping it locked away in his desk. She thought this meant he didn't love her, but her investigation proved otherwise. Despite tailing him at night, Kyouko couldn't actually catch him with another woman. Nazuna, however, got injured in her pursuit and wound up revealing herself as a vampire, which definitely took some time getting used to. More frustrating than the potential affair, Kyouko had stayed out that entire night, yet her mom was neither concerned nor worried about her. Feeling lost and unloved, she broke down in tears before Nazuna, who immediately embraced her. When Kyouko begged for salvation, Nazuna offered to make her into an underling. For as tender as this blood-sucking was, it didn't work, as Kyouko didn't actually have romantic feelings for her vampire friend. Even so, things began to turn around all on their own. Her father admitted to having an affair, and her family reconciled over celebrating Kyoko's birthday on Halloween. Just as things were finally looking up, however, her dad showed signs of turning into a vampire. Unable to control his urges, he lashed out and sucked his wife's blood till she became a lifeless husk. Desperate to survive, Kyouko fought back, learning that vampires are weak to mementos of their former lives. Thus, with the very lighter she bought for him, she slew the father she knew loved her dearly. Needless to say, Kyouko developed a hatred of vampires, cutting things off with Nazuna to spend the following decade studying how to kill them. As a detective under the alias Anko Uguisu, she hunted vampires as the only human who could successfully kill them. Eventually, she identifies the vampire responsible for turning her dad, Kiku Hoshimi, and seeks a way to wipe out their entire race. She's also planning to take her own life, reasoning she could kill two birds with one stone. In a rather far-fetched scheme, Kyouko goes out on Halloween night to provoke the city's vampires, particularly Nazuna. By threatening to kill Ko, she tries to have Nazuna kill her. She hopes the police will find her body, leaving behind footage of her death that'll expose vampires to the public. People would stop going out at night, in effect, depriving vampires of their food supply. However, when her plan gets figured out, she goes to end things the old-fashioned way, making a horrible mistake as Ko tries to stop her. This ordeal exhausts her rage, allowing her to end her pursuit and finally start living for her own sake. Of course, she still has a grudge against Kiku, but now she's focused on gaining closure rather than revenge. Kyoko's story may be tragic, but I love how it takes a turn for the better. Beyond her usual wicked demeanor, she's a total sweetheart who genuinely deserves to find happiness. Kyouko spends the first 2 seasons being Call of the Night's main antagonist. However, that role shifts to Kiku Hoshimi, one of the world's oldest vampires. She was close friends with Nazuna's mother, Haru, and she's probably where Haru got the idea that vampires could turn human again by falling in love with their prey. Following this belief, Kiku spent the last 5 centuries attempting to love humans and suck their blood, only to fail each and every time, instead leaving behind a trail of offspring in her wake. Kiku's actually racked up the highest amount of underlings in her entire race. Ideally, she tries to hide her vampiric status from her victims, but is forced to confess the truth to her latest target, Ko's friend and classmate Mahiru Seki. Hiding behind her gorgeous, inviting exterior is a haunting figure with tremendous power. Not knowing the feeling of true love has eroded her compassion. That said, her spirits are invigorated once more when learning that Ko, before being shot by Kyouko, became some form of vampire hybrid. Kiku's pursuit of Ko pushes her into the spotlight as the story's new villain. Depending on her actions in Season 3, I may have to return to her in a follow-up video. Akira Asai is Ko's childhood friend and classmate. While Ko starts cutting class, Akira persists as a model student, even though she too lives an unfulfilled life. Her own insomnia has her waking up at 4 in the morning and heading to school freakishly early. This results in her walking around town before classes start. Akira's stuck in a boring routine without any excitement. Her interactions at school and home don't motivate her, and yet she endures boredom to live the way society expects her to. Poor Akira has lost touch with her more cheerful, childish whims. Back then, she and Ko both embraced their wandering interests, only for social responsibilities to weigh them down with age. In Akira's case, depression has taken hold of her, to the point where positivity bothers her. It makes her cringe. Despite encouraging her friends to live by the book, she finds herself being dragged into their more obscure affairs. Her morning walks are so early, they intersect with Ko's nighttime escapades, allowing her to meet Nazuna and other vampires. The more she supports Ko's lifestyle, the more lively she becomes. Of course, she has every right to worry about Ko, especially considering that not all vampires know how to control themselves. There may be few people she can relate to, but that doesn't mean she lacks diverse emotions or sentiment. As kids, Ko accidentally left a walkie-talkie wristwatch on her mailbox, and Akira thought it was his way of expressing himself. She still holds onto that watch. Rather than a potential lover, Akira sees Ko as a younger brother. She supports his quest to become a vampire, even offering her own blood should he ever need it to avoid starving. That's not to say vampires don't weird her out. At first, she was very suspicious of Nazuna, accusing her of only wanting Ko's blood. She also finds it odd just how many women he's become friends with since going out at night. Even though Akira's younger than these vampires, her impressive bust makes them envious. Overall, I find Akira quite charming. There's an appeal to her underspoken demeanor. She's got this deadpan expression and beady eyes that really grow on ya. Nazuna tries not to associate with her own kind, but there's a particular gathering of peers that actively look after her. Nico Hirata is kinda the group's leader, a hot-tempered academic MILF. I don't think she's actually a mom, but she's totally got that older woman vibe. Nico teaches at a night school, the same institution Nazuna used to attend. She enjoys the prospect of her male students crushing on her, especially when they come back as grown men. Despite loving romance, she can't stand lewdness. Nico tries to remain mature and prideful in her affairs, but totally falls into a rage mode when flustered or provoked. Luckily, when the dust settles and she regains her composure, Nico can be quite rational and forgiving. This extends to Kyouko, even though she tried to kill Nico. Initially, Nazuna's arrangement with Ko was a topic of concern for Nico and the other vampires. It was dangerous to have a human like him knowing so much about them without actually converting to their side. Nico insisted on meeting the young man in person, even if that meant abducting him against his will. Now, she merely probes Ko for any juicy romantic developments. Sadly, on that front, there usually isn't much to report. Either way, she believes Ko's desire to turn is genuine. One of Nico's students, Lira Echigo, is listed as being exclusive to the manga, but isn't this her, right here in the classroom? Even if it is her, though, she doesn't really do anything in the anime yet. I can't really say much about her now, but it's cool seeing her as a cameo. Kabura Honda is the woman who raised Nazuna to maturity, but did so with a heavy heart. Her life as a human was plagued by perpetual illness, forcing her to spend most of her time in the hospital while her family and friends went about their daily activities. She considered herself a burden, not even wanting to bother the hospital staff. Luckily, her nurse, Nazuna's mother Haru, had amazing compassion and bedside manner. Haru quickly became the one person Kabura ever felt comfortable conveying her sorrows to. Haru validated her experiences when she herself would try to make excuses for the cruelty of her supposed friends. On the rare occasion Kabura was discharged and could visit her friends, they didn't plan activities that would include her. Instead, they would guilt-trip Kabura for being unable to attend, say, a skiing trip. She also had developed a hatred of men, especially when her friends brought guys along for planned outings. It was clear they didn't really care about her, and she chose to blame herself for the longest time. Eventually, Kabura's resentment reached a breaking point. She confessed how much she hated the world and her inability to live like ordinary girls. Hearing this, Haru gave Kabura the chance to escape her illness by becoming a vampire. It was an easy process, as Kabura already had feelings for her playful nurse. As a vampire, she was finally able to reclaim enjoyment of the things she once hated. Most importantly, she was madly in love with Haru, and for a while, they spent every moment together. Unfortunately, this didn't last. Recall how Haru actually wanted to become human and was willing to bear a man's child for it? Well, this mostly happened behind Kabura's back. Without much say in the matter, Kabura had to endure as Haru passed away and entrusted her with caring for Nazuna. This guardianship was filled with conflicting emotions. Kabura resented Nazuna, unfairly blaming her for Haru's death. At the same time, caring for her gave Kabura's life meaning, preserving a lingering connection to the late Haru. Furthermore, Nazuna looked exactly like her mom, and Kabura found herself attracted to both mother and child, even though she was supposed to be a mother figure in this relationship. Ultimately, that maternal role won out, and even though Nazuna can barely recall her infancy, she acknowledges the care provided to her. She might seem ungrateful at times, but Nazuna gets annoyed and embarrassed around Kabura for the same reasons any child would rebel against a parent. Kabura, in turn, won't reveal just how much she truly cares for Nazuna, though she will get suspiciously flirty from time to time. In complete contrast, we have Midori Kohakobe, a vampire who dominates her job as a maid at the local cafe. Her adorable nature isn't just an act, but a genuine lifestyle. She loves all things cute and moe. The fang shown in her smile is the real deal, too. The pride she takes in her appearance has given her quite the ego. She'll hold a grudge against anyone who rejects her appeal, and surrounds herself with people willing to contribute to her self-esteem. It's no wonder, then, that her most cherished underling is Love Green, an otaku hikikomori who worships her like an idol. He is, in fact, the quintessential otaku in both behavior and looks. Midori actively searches for other lonely virgins to convert as underlings, but so far, none of them measure up to Love Green. While mementos of a vampire's human past can be used against them as their ultimate weakness, Midori has nothing from that former life she's especially fond of. She lives in the moment, valuing the present over all else. She's lucky that, as far as I'm aware, vampires don't visibly age much, if at all, so she'll remain adorable for quite some time. At Midori's maid cafe, the second most popular waitress is a girl named Arisa. She too has a fragile ego, and was devastated when Midori dethroned her in popularity. More than embodying cuteness, Arisa craves attention, even if it means manufacturing drama to obtain it. Ko and Nazuna get roped into a mystery at the cafe, whereby some pervert has been posting photos of Arisa in the dressing room. The naive maid basks in being the subject of everyone's minds for a while, but pushes too far and is accidentally caught in the act of staging these lewd photos and uploading them herself. Perhaps she's better off sticking with a less incriminating passion, like taking selfies, which she excels at. After all, real drama isn't as glamorous as she thinks it is. Who's ready for a vampire gyaru? I am! Seri Kikyou goes around at night wearing a school uniform with a short skirt. She's no stranger to flirting, and will indulge people who give her glances. This is how she's recruited most of her underlings, but lately, she's found it less and less fulfilling. Unlike Midori, she doesn't want to be worshipped or obsessed over, at least not to a certain extreme. At the same time, she's been doing this for so long she struggles forming platonic relationships with men. Nonetheless, Seri tried to befriend Akihito Akiyama, a dejected young man who just got dumped by his ex. She could relate to his fatigue of romance and wanted to maintain a friendship with him, but found herself instinctively flirting instead. When Akihito fell for Seri, she rejected him, and being neglected for long enough turned him into a creepy stalker. She avoided him out of a belief that humans and vampires simply can't be friends. To her, humans are either food or potential servants. Rather immaturely, Seri sought to kill Akihito, not because she wanted him dead, but because she couldn't bear to part with their friendship. In time, rather than avoid his feelings, she relents, taking him on as her underling, ready to embrace whatever shape their relationship takes moving forward. Even after this ordeal, she can't help but keep flirting with other guys. In that regard, she's often very fierce and confrontational, but behind that violent exterior is a proper yearning for companionship. Gyaru are often misunderstood, and Seri proves to be no different. The last of Nico's vampire clique isn't a waifu, but the next best thing, a femboy. Hatsuka Suzushiro deserves an honorable mention for being just as alluring as his female counterparts. I clarify that he's a guy because he admits to it. His presentation comes from a personal preference for women's clothing, and he has no problem joining other men for a public bath. He's definitely a candidate for my next femboy files. Let's finish this list off with some interesting side characters. Kiyosumi Shirakawa is an active client at Nazuna's News Shack. She's very competent as a magazine publisher, but suffers burnout from her overbearing boss and coworkers. For the sake of her career, she forces herself to obey their tasteless jokes, unwanted social outings, and unreasonable hours. When the pressure of it all starts to overwhelm her, she'll visit Nazuna for a well-needed massage that she almost enjoys a bit too much. Understandably, she's taken aback to learn that Ko is substituted in as her next masseuse. He's too young to be holding a job like this, but Kiyosumi finds his love of the night quite relatable. When she was a teenager, Kiyosumi also enjoyed the night's freedom and serenity. As an adult, she's grown to be quite envious of people like Ko, admiring his desire to cast away society in favor of life as a vampire. The very thought of returning to work brings her to tears, which Nazuna harshly responds to by yeeting her out the window and saving her at the last second from a fatal flaw. It's Nazuna's way of reminding her she doesn't always have to act rationally. She doesn't have to drown in the sea of her responsibilities. Thankfully, this experience doesn't traumatize her, and she emerges with a sense of relief knowing that if things really get too difficult, she too can aim to become a vampire. I can't say I really approve of this kind of therapy, though. It gives me GTO vibes. The last three waifu for now are three of Ko's former classmates, as well as the catalyst for him wanting to quit school. Recall that Ko doesn't really know what it feels like to love someone romantically. Thus, when his classmate Sakura Asakura confessed to him, he turned her down. She took this in stride, but her friends, Saki Fujiwara and Michiko, decided to harass Ko for his decision. They even took his absence from school as an attempt to spite Sakura. While these two girls are very mean-spirited, Sakura still vouches for them, and they do wind up regretting their behavior. I'll certainly have more to say about all three girls when they return in a new season. As I said before, the manga features at least 4 other waifu that don't appear in the anime at all. These include Suzuki, Kei Yamori, and Mrs. Seki. A new season would find them, as well as some of the waifu I could only mention briefly, expanding their roles significantly. I'm not about to wait for however long that'll take to get the ball rolling. Happy Halloween! I hope this dose of vampire babes enhances the holiday. Be sure to check out the full Waifu Files playlist for tons more content. And until next time, celebrate your fandom.
I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Mystic Samurai 1983, Otaku Mom, Free Brick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Major, Matal Mataru, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Sunbro Torian, Foxpox, Caitlin P, Sith Lord 906, Vladimir Rovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X77, and Alistair Bernadotte. Thank you all so much.